Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Centre and Centre for Civilians in Conflict (CIVIC) have sought President Muhammadu Buhari's backing of the National Legal Framework for Protection of Civilians. They made the call at the media party to rethink and canvass a national policy for the protection of civilian and civilian harm mitigation in armed conflict organized by the centers in Abuja. Executive Director of Legislative Advocacy Centre said the call was imperative to address loss of civilian lives in the course of military operations in conflict areas.
To be effective, security institutions must be politically accountable to the legitimate authorities of the state and to the democratically elected representative of the people through external oversight. In formulating national security policies and priorities, the protection of civilians and civilian harm mitigation are also very fundamental. Protection of civilians allows for adequate accountability mechanism that pushes external agencies to regulate the use of discretionary powers, such as whether the use of force as applied or that can be applied, in compliance with our national law and also international best practices. Ensure that the regime that promotes civilians is also properly established.
He therefore urged the media to continue to amplify the need for legal framework for the protection of civilians in Nigeria.
It is important to ensure that we advocate for urgent adoption of policy regime that emphasizes on train and equip measures, a thorough and joint assessment of capacity and integrity of forces that can help manage any potential harms in the theater of operation.
Country Director of CIVIC, represented by Team Lead of CIVIC, said the organization had developed and implemented solutions to mitigate and respond to civilian harm.
Many forms. The concept of the protection of civilians seeks to address the threats by mitigating harm, facilitating access to basic needs, and contributing to establishing a safe and secure environment. And our ask of you, especially our friends from the media this morning, is to become very strong tool advocates and, of course, partners that we can continue to explore ways of working on this policy and to also promote the adoption of the protection of civilian policy and draft bill. And, of course, commonly to us is the fact that if this is signed, we would have the full weight of our support and, of course, of the government of Nigeria to ensure that not just this, but other policies, laws, and, of course, other protocols that have been signed by Nigeria would align with the protection of civilian policy in trying to protect civilians in whatever part of Nigeria.
In his remarks, Program Manager of Legislative Advocacy Centre said the aim of the meeting was to get the media to design an agenda for the country on protection of civilians and civilian harm mitigation in armed conflicts.
We believe that considering the number of fatalities that the country has recorded over the last decade, that it becomes very important that we become very deliberate in putting the infrastructure for protection in place. And that is why we think that the media can help, first, to design an agenda, secondly, to popularize and influence actors, thirdly, to be able to inform, educate, analyze, investigate issues that borders around vulnerability of civilians, and, of course, where harm has occurred, how they can also help to influence amends, and how the state can also be participant in this.